Public. Welcome to the June meeting of the Western District Council. Welcome also to Jane, who's with us from afar. Jane, how's your health today?
Yeah, thank you. You're definitely on the improve, so it's good.
You're looking good.
Thank you.
I've asked Jane to deliver the care and care for us today. Thank you, Jane.
So I've found a Matariki blessing. Waipuna Arangi, may the waters that flow through us, Waiti Waita, bless us. The earth and her bounty, Tupu Anuku, invite us to share. Tupu Arangi. May the storms that engulf us, Ururangi, serve to gentle and humble us, make us wise. May our dead in the heavens, Pohutukawa, precious as light beyond darkness, remember and mind us. Stars gathered as sign, desire held out and deep. May newness of season, Hiwa Itirangi, warm us and wake us as we pause for rebirth. So just talking about the different stars of Matariki and their meanings. Thank you.
Very appropriate. Cool. Apologies from Councillor White and from His Worship Mayor, of course, and Councillor Hartshaw, who'll be joining us shortly, in about 15 minutes or so. Remind councillors, as we do every meeting, that the interest register is to be reviewed and completed. Please make certain to make sure that that's up to date. Any urgent items? You need to move it to of course it is. Sorry. Someone move that the College thanks can be accepted and Favour? Aye. You've been doing this too long, guys. Some of us haven't been doing it long enough. Okay, now item 5 in the agenda are the minutes of previous meetings that need to be received. So firstly, you'll see there's the ordinary council meeting minutes of the last meeting, 26th of May, and the extraordinary council meeting minutes of 14th of June 2022. I shall move that those two sets of minutes be confirmed as true and correct record of those two meetings. Can someone second that, please? Councillor. All those in favour? Aye. I approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed ordinary council meeting minutes of 26th May 2022 and the extraordinary council meeting minutes of 14th June 2022. In your agenda, there's 3 sets of minutes to be received. The Community Development Committee meeting, 20th of October 2021, the Cycling and Walking Committee meeting, 3rd of March 2022, Community Development Committee meeting, 7th of March 2022. I shall move that those 3 sets of minutes be received. Will someone second that motion, please?
There wasn't a Community Development Committee meeting on the 7th of March. Wasn't that the one we had to?
Yeah, but we have minutes that say that it was abandoned.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Councillor Davidson, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Okay, Simon, action list. Pages 5 to 7.
So good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and councillors. Great to see you on a lovely day in Westland. I'll take you through to the individual actions and open up for questions at the end. Speed limit register review, stage 2. As previously outlined, this we completed after the end plan process. To date, I've only received a couple of minor requests for changes, so I'll go into the submission process accordingly. Ross Chinese Gardens, the lake management. Myself and the project manager visited shortly after the last council meeting, talked to the contractor doing the work, plus also the community member representing Charlie McPeter was unavailable. We walked through what the process was, where they were at, and also what further works still had to be completed. We agreed on a completion date of 1st of September, bearing in mind that all of the material has been supplied for free, and that's usually linked with another activity that is happening over time. The lake level obviously raised with the amount of rain we had, caused some short-term flooding. The outlet has been reduced down to 29 metres now, and I haven't had another assessment since that level has been changed. Hamish is following again next week, next couple of weeks, in terms of where that's sitting now. Investigate costs to bring Whakawaitara and decor buildings up to the standard. We obviously had an earlier workshop earlier this week in terms of both buildings, and no further progress has been made other than that. Race course development submission. So we are still in negotiations, and I'll bring it up further in my CE's report. But that is still in progress. And obviously, we also had the Tuesday night meeting with organisations regarding sports and recreation for the Hokitika area. And there was work is commissioned to be completed by a group called Recreation Sports Limited, based over in Christchurch. Our gambling policy, we'll have to push that back to August, I'm afraid. We have assigned a consultant who is now working on this piece of document, so we'll table that in August. Hokitika Beachfront sign, we've had initial discussions with the creator of the sign, and he's very pleased to work with us during the period of the access way installation to make it semi-permanent. And Whakatahi, following the last council meeting, there were some examples that were to be sent through to James Cahill, referring here primarily to the items raised by Councillor Hartshorn. He was going to send some photos through. I haven't received that. It's a minor action. I'm happy to take that up with you directly. Happy to open up for any questions.
Councillors, any questions?
Thank you, Chief Executive. Just a quick question on the speed limit review. When do you anticipate that opening?
In terms of the round?
The consultation, yeah.
I'll have to consult with Matt District Assets in terms of the time frame for that. I don't anticipate it being too long after any plans being resolved.
Thank you. I'll move that the action list be received.
Someone second that motion, please. Thank you. Councillor Cogan, all those in favour?
Aye.
I noticed that our next agenda item is the presentation from chorus. I'm happy to start into my CE's report, and then
What time is the chorus, man?
1:30.
Oh, yes. All right.
That's all right.
Yep. Thank you, Simon. So we'll now proceed to item 8, the staff reports and the Chief Executive quarterly report.
Thank you. Just taking you through the report. I'll highlight some of the aspects of the report and take the rest as read. 3 waters reform. Obviously, everyone will be aware that the first reading has passed through Parliament. Submission process is about to get underway with Select Committee. Communities for Local Democracy are continuing to look at the best possible ways to leverage a revised model. So they've contracted Castilia, who's already been working with the group, to write a submission on the group's behalf. From that submission, there'll be a template supplied to each of the member councils of that group to also make submissions, and we can obviously modify that as the council sees fit. There's also been a suggestion that the Select Committee actually travel the country rather than everyone having to go to Wellington, and actually get in front of elected members and the public around this. So that has also been supported by our GNZ as an option. The Three Waters Capital Program, the team's done extremely well. In a very short time, we had to scope and also implement these projects. We've completed 44 out of 46 projects. Just would like to highlight that we have spread this funding all right down the length and breadth of Westland, and I'm going to show you some photos at the end of this presentation of this report of the work that we have done in that space. The rest of the annual plan projects, completed projects, 42%. We have 46 currently underway, so that's 86 projects are started or completed. 6% we haven't started yet, and 6% will be carried over till the next financial year. The big ones obviously being Arrow Water Treatment Plant now being fully commissioned. Power has been connected. I'm still just waiting for metering from Meridian, and the Fox Water Treatment Plant, which is a $1 million project for council, is expected to be completed in January 23. So everything's on order at the moment. The Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant, great engagement over the last few days. The team, including the iwi reps, visited the Greymouth Wastewater Treatment Plant. I think it was very exciting, Scott, I understand. But very good to see the potential of what a Hokitika plant could look like, along with various other aspects. We have been engaging also recently with Silverfern Farms. Obviously, they are a big player and stakeholder in this, and working with them on a solution as well. And the next meeting will be next week, a formal meeting. I'd just like to highlight the Hokitika swimming pool renovation. So stage 1 was completed with $100,000 worth of savings. Stage 2, which was combined finishing the utilities and services side, plus also the new changing rooms and front of house. The price came in from the tenderer, from the contractor at considerably more than we expected. There's obviously a lot of inflation, a lot of supply chain pressures. We have managed to shave off quite a considerable sum off that scope of works, and with it still being a good investment. And the fact that when we pitched the $3 million fund to shovel-ready money, it didn't cover off some aspects that should have been covered off, like design and consultants and contingency. So we have now a figure of about $1.4 million additional cost to complete stage 2. I have been working with PTF and now Kanoa about an additional support package for us, and following discussions on Friday, I am quietly confident that we will be able to get this across the line, which will be a great outcome for Westland and Raipa. So fantastic. That'll be zero input from the council at all in terms of the stage 2 completion. The unfortunate thing is we won't know until the ministers meet. They don't meet very often, only once a quarter. The next meeting is not scheduled until August. But usually, if it's in the pack that goes to council, to the ministers, it's very unlikely to be challenged after all the work that everyone has done. So, if anyone wants to know the detail of the exact costing, happy to share that vote in confidence. That's okay. There's quite a few projects obviously happening around with regards to TIF funding and also cycleway funding. I won't go through those individually. I'll take them as read. Just want to highlight the work of the footpath maintenance. You'll get a more detailed update in July with the transportation managers update, but just to show the work that's been underway today, and the work that's been completed. And happy to take questions. So I'm going to hear the parts of the report that I haven't covered as well.
The 600,000 or thereabouts cost that was shaved off these sort of full costs. Was that as a result of taking work out of the scope of works, or I mean, how was that achieved?
So the architects provided a scope of work, and the costings were made on that scope of work. Following that scope of work, we've decided that some of this is add-on and can be passed down or not utilised, just to make sure the budget is reasonable. So there's no nice to have. It's going to be quite basic, but it's also going to be still a very nice facility, but not at a high end. So some of the stuff they put in terms of types of materials to use, said no, drop down to this, just to make it in a reasonable number. Just to say that it has been QS by an external party to say that this is a fair reasonable price.
Because we're not going out of tender on it.
Direct award.
Through the chair, I noticed that the Town Belt East Stormwater project has started, and it looks fairly impressive.
Yes.
And I noticed, like, we've got about 3 or 4 pump stations along here. Does this new project down there, does that include a pump station?
I have to defer that. We don't have the subject matter expert in the room, but I can follow that for council.
Yeah, thank
Just
you.
to bear in mind, Livingston Street project is still a big project yet to be done, but it's in the next set of plan.
Yeah.
Which will look at this side of the dairy factory as well.
Sure.
Because a lot of the race course I've found out, just looking at it in detail, goes along the top and comes down through Livingston Street. Yeah. So everything that runs to the back of the race course ends up on Livingston Street, still one line. It's quite a big task.
Thanks. Thank you.
Councillors. Simon, this is not good.
Oh, hang on.
Response.
The stewardship land review. Can I ask that when the council sits down with the other West Coast councils to do the joint submission, that you consider a submission in support of the Naito reserves within that?
Yeah, it's up to the councillors, not so I'm purely acting on behalf of council. So we're engaging Mark Christensen, who did the work around the legal changes to the Conservation Act, the fast track stewardship land review. I think that's a question you put to the mayors and chairs would be more appropriate than me. I can say yes or no, but I'm not.
So, yes, okay, so will mayors and chairs read Mark?
And it's a report on behalf of the council. So yes, so I think I can't prejudge what the outcome. I don't understand it in detail myself. But what I think we'll do is make sure that any critique is also be critiqued by, particularly with the Marianne aspect, critiqued by both itself and Francois.
There's indications of some severe pushback on the Naito historic reserves, which is I don't understand on account that there's no difference except in the name and the race on it. But the Tarahanga Toru Naito Historic Reserve is the whole of the mountain range that you see behind us.
Right.
So it covers everything that's within the site of Hokitika. It's within that, so it is a part of the wider cohort of stewardship being looked at.
Yeah, I think the submissions close at September, is it?
No.
End of July. Yes, correct. So there's quite a tight time frame to get done. Mark hasn't come back and formally agreed to do the work yet, so I'm going to fire it up. Thank you.
Any other comments? I move that the Chief Executive's quarterly report be received. Someone second that motion, please. Councillor Hart, all those in favour?
Aye.
There's monthly
Oh, sorry, I would, what I'm up here. I will take you through a slideshow, councillors. Sorry, I forgot to do that.
Francois, I see you've joined. Nice to have you with us.
So while we've got a break, and I always intended to do this, but I forgot. So what I've asked my team to do was actually put a collage of photos together. Just it's very hard to go out and see what's actually happening in various parts of our district in terms of work that the council has done over the last quarter. So we just want to slide them through, please. I'll take you through one by one. So through Woods Reform Funding, which is the tranche one, which is $6.9 million. Like I said in my CE's update, 44 projects, 46 projects, two outstanding. So this is just some photos of the work we've been doing around the community. So Harry water mains upgrade along the state highway. Next. Fox Glacier water mains upgrade replacement for 1.5 kilometres of a wastewater line that was old and perilous, so we've replaced that. Next. New water treatment reservoir in Harry, obviously a big buffer now, so it provides a lot more surety of and tied that with the water supply line into the township. In Blue Spur, we put a $1.5 million litre new treated water reservoir up there, so additional buffer capacity for the township. Franz Joseph, brand new water, 200 cubic metre water reservoir and generator. So it's if you recall, a few years ago, we lost both Fox and Franz water supplies, so they had to fly in generators at that time. So we've installed a brand new generator up there and obviously additional buffer capacity. In Ross, the water treatment plant, replaced the membrane filter in there and put a generator set on that as well. Hugs, water treatment plant, a new generator. And new storage facilities as well, and a septage receiver into our sewage ponds. So basically, rather than shocking the system, they pump into this tank and it's completed in time. And obviously, we can meter in the charges as well for that as well. Fitzherbert Street water pump station upgrade and generator. Town Valleys have got underway now. You can see all those big, large pipes. This will run all the way up to the racecourse. And obviously, future state racecourse development would tap into this line as well. Working very closely with Westland Milk, obviously, around their production schedule, hence the reason it's quite late in their winter period. So that's about a 3 or 4 week job, quite a big job too. Arrowhill water treatment plant, fantastic little unit, state of the art, and will be obviously supplying Arrowhill village and community and park for some time. That's a bore, basically right beside the Arrowhill River. Franz Joseph, new air dryer for one of our wood plants, and also Canary Road wastewater pump station upgrade, which has been on the cards for a long, long time. Ross, this took a very, very long time. If you go back to when lead mining contaminated the water supply, you remember 2018, it compromised our water reservoir taking. So we have installed now a new reception up there, which also allows all the fish to bypass. As you can see, there's a water channel that passes through. So a very good job. So it took quite some time for Doc to approve this design. So that's installed now. Wastewater treatment plant upgrades around Fox. So new fence around it because it was previously free access. hard stand improvements, power, generator and septage receiver done. So it's now got a, very similar to the Hokitika ponds, it's got a aerator on it. We're still working on a final easement with this with the landowner, but it should be finished in due process. Hokitika stormwater mains replacements, it's up airport right away, and also Canary stormwater upgrade to about St Albans Street. Wolf Street, Tancred Street upgrades, and obviously a new outlet. Sailor Street flat gate replacement, the duckbill one you see on the right hand side. So basically your water can't run back up it. Finally, Custom House is getting underway, and thanks to the Heritage Hokitika for lotteries funding application they've made. Just to point on all our facilities, so Mark Dixon is now our new facilities and properties manager. He's built in a very, very comprehensive maintenance program for our facilities. Obviously, that needs to be considered as part of how budgets are spent going forward, because to maintain and keep them to the right level needs to be considered future state. Next. Western footpath projects, Park Street renewal surface completed. Mitre 10 is underway at the moment, and footpaths and trams, Canary, Water have been seal prepped for reseal, and we resurfaced when the weather is right. There's a bit of a schematic of the ones that have been done today. The yellow ones are the ones underway, and the ones in red, which is only a small couple of pieces. Oh, the big one in Harry, not yet started. That's the ones we talked priority one, if you recall, a few months ago. Next. Canary Crossing intersection finally finished. Thanks for your patience. Water playground has been replaced. So very happy the community had full engagement and buy-in to the final design. The only final piece is to get it parked and completed. Fifth project's underway, Caspian toilet block design. The toilet is actually in West Road Yard now, waiting for installation. Baringa toilet box design. Franchise Kelly Point resealing contract is almost finalised. And the beachfront development access ramp will be completed short. Started work starting that. I believe all the blocks have been manufactured. Next stage is installation. This is hopefully I was trying to get councillors to go inside Carnegie, but it was unfortunately a bit of a hazard. So you can see the considerable works inside the building itself. What you can't quite see, and it's the bottom middle picture, is all the steelworks in the roof space. You won't see that when it's all completed, but it's rated IL4 rating. It's the safest place to be in an earthquake. It's run to the museum because it's built like something else. Parapet work that caused us some major issues. It was made of styrofoam. So when we went to replace it, we had to find some better permanent solution. And the team have done a fantastic job. Trademark, who are our contractors with us, have been excellent to deal with and have been very professional in how they've competed with. And Hokitika swimming pool, most of the stuff you can't actually see the work that's been completed. Obviously we've replaced the end and the airflow in there has been enhanced and improved, and there's not as much condensation that's in the building. Not better environmentally swimming and playing. I think it's happy increases in those as well.
It's impressive, Simon. With Carnegie, did they dig into the foundations and replace the foundations? No. Because I thought they needed to do that to make it an IL building, need to deal with foundations.
So the design required significant internals. A lot of foundation. I'm not sure if they had put in.
They put additional concrete on things, so that strength.
Any steelwork would have had obviously set deep into it.
Councillors, any questions? Our water assets must be pretty good now,
Yeah, should I hold on for 2 more years? No, just to comment on that, and I made a comment to Eugene did at the same time. We started investing back in late 2015, primarily stormwater to do with water flooding issues. And the program work since 2015 to today, and our future program sees us in a very, very strong position. All our water supply assets are almost first class. We've got some gaps to fill with the new ROI regulations. We're obviously dealing with now with Hokitika wastewater treatment plant in terms of a way forward for that. Franz and Haas, Fox and Haas. Haas is something we are very aware of, being some expanding, but also we are very conscious that it may not be in the right place, considering the Haas River. And all of them also need to be sediment removed over time, which is quite a significant expense. But yes, our water assets, if you look at the program we're working at, the 10-year plan, will be almost back to square one again. It's about 30 million in the next 10 years to spend.
Unfortunately, all flies under the radar, public radar. People just don't.
Hence the reason I today.
And their presentation exposes the fallacy of the whole pretext of the government's 3 water reform, that the nation's water supplies council hands were failing throughout the country. It's just, we've said from the start, it's just not true. Let's fall on deaf ears, of course. But I mean, there's the proof. And the one weak spot, I guess, is the Fox Glacier.
Yeah, so that is,
that's been,
so I was going to say that the Fox Glacier is our 4 on our site, and that's why $1 million has been spent on that part, and will be finished by January. So that project was quite delayed in terms of the quality of tenders and the amount of work that we didn't do in the front end to design it right. But we have a solution now, and it's around just getting that in place as quick as we can.
and I think no one will be happy in the community.
And the biggest one, as you know, is the Hokitika Wastewater Treatment Plant solution. And working alongside our EV partners and other stakeholders, we'll have a very nice design for that at the other end of it.
Or pass it over into someone else's hands.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any other questions? Thank you, Simon. That was very good. Thank you, Simon. Good. Well done. Now we have Nathan Beaumont on screen. Hello, Nathan. Welcome to the Western District Council. Can you see us? We can see
I can. You. Yep. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
That's okay. You're the head of corporate relations for Chorus, I think, are you?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd just quickly run through a quick presentation, just sort of outlining a few, I guess, key areas to cover off. But there's probably more value in actually just having a bit of a chat and taking some of your questions. So I guess the starting point is you may have heard about the copper withdrawal program. So just a quick overview of that. So where we've got the fibre program right across the country that we've been building for the last 10 odd years. So what we've come to the conclusion is with that is there's not a lot of point in having 2 competing networks. So we've just started some trials around in fibre areas. So just in the areas where we've built fibre, we are removing the copper network. So the key thing to remember here is, particularly in these rural areas in Westland, is if they're not in the fibre area, they've got nothing to worry about. So only in fibre areas are we doing this work. So if you're on the copper network or outside the fibre area, nothing changes in that regard. So the copper network is still available. We've started in terms of the copper withdrawal network in the urban areas where fibre is available. We've started in a handful of areas. So we've done Auckland, Wellington, and Dunedin. So just basically kind of easing into it, seeing what works, trialing it with customers and sort of getting their feedback in the first instance. So we started that sort of before we went into lockdown, Auckland into lockdown last August. We had planned to start then, but obviously it made no sense to keep that work going when people were in lockdown and they were worried about their connectivity and that sort of thing. So we sort of paused it and started it again earlier this year. So feel free to jump in with questions as I go, rather than me just wrap it on. So in terms of the copper withdrawal code, we've been working with the industry's been working with the Commerce Commission to actually develop a code that we have to abide by and adhere to. So the role of that is mainly to protect the customer. So that's the main understanding. They understand how the process works. They have information about what technologies they can move to, whether it's fibre, whether it's fixed wireless, or whatever they want to. We have to give customers at least 6 months notice, so plenty of time to get their head around what it all means and what their options are. So over that 6 months, we send them 3 different notices. So the first one's basically heads up to say, hey, look, you're in a fibre area. We're going to turn the copper network off. This is what it means. This is what you should do. This is what you should consider, that sort of thing. And then second and third notice is basically saying, hey, just a reminder that we're doing this.
Can you just pause you for a second?
Yeah, sure.
We've got a presentation that you provided for us. Do you want that to be on screen while you're talking, or is it just the same as what you're telling us now?
Yeah, it's mainly just words, so it's probably have to add a lot of value. So I can just kind of keep going. I'll go through it quite quickly so they can just have a bit of a chat. In terms of what that means in terms of the copper withdrawal, so those in the fibre area, they can still have a landline. So just because the copper is being withdrawn, it doesn't mean that's the end of the landline. So over fibre, you can still have the landline. That doesn't change. You can keep the same number. So that's absolutely fine. And there's also, the government's put in place a 111 contact code and for vulnerable end users code. So so when the likes of the Sparks or the Vodafones supply services to people, they just have to kind of be aware if there's vulnerable users, so they can have a plan in place to help them. In terms of the numbers of, as I say, we've just kind of dipped our toes into it, just sort of get some early data and see how it goes. There's about 378,000 copper connections still in place at the moment in New Zealand. We've notified about 10,000 under the code that we're planning on turning the network off in that area. And so far, about just over 3,000 have actually moved off copper onto different services. So whether that's fibre or the fixed wireless, and that's about 75 of those street cabinets that you see in the street. They've been emptied and ready to be switched off. So early days, but the feedback so far has been quite good. So we've made a few changes around how we communicate and sort of how we deal with it based on those early numbers. I guess the other part to add into this is Sparks. You might have heard of Sparks Pstn migration. This is where it gets a little bit complicated because it's kind of getting a bit sort of technology challenge. But so Spark has what's called a Pstn network, which is basically a switches that automatically connect landline calls over the copper network. So that was built in the 1980s. It's coming to the end of its life. There's been no components manufactured since 2003. There's a shortage of skilled technicians who can actually work on that network. So Spark's beginning to migrate customers off that onto different technologies. And again, you can still stay on the copper network, but you can just have your landline over a broadband connection, for example. So we've had a lot of confusion, particularly in rural areas where people have been contacted by Spark to say, hey, look, we're moving you off the Pstn on the copper network, and people think that the copper network is being removed, but that's definitely not the case. So a little bit of myths around that we've had to sort of work with. So I guess in terms of the copper network chorus, it's always going to be there in those areas outside the fibre areas. We'll continue to maintain it. In some areas, we're actually extending our copper network and making it faster with VDSL and fibre backhaul. So I guess in some cases, the services that the likes of Vodafone and Spark choose to offer, that's up to them. So we've seen some cases where Vodafone's decided not to offer voice services over a copper network. Now, we still have that service that they could offer, but they've chosen not to for business reasons. So our hands are a little bit tied with that. So that's basically where we are at the moment. Might be easier if I just sort of take any questions, and we can sort of, anything that's sort of top of mind, I can kind of cover off as well.
Nathan, does the fibre network require as much maintenance as the copper network?
No, it's very low maintenance. I mean, because the fibre network is basically glass with light shooting down the glass, so it can handle the wet weather very well. Whereas I guess the challenge with copper is water and copper don't mix particularly well. So you tend to have, in this time of year where it's a bit wetter and the weather's a bit more unpredictable, you tend to get a few more faults on the copper network. Whereas the fibre network is very robust, very resilient, and just keeps on trucking.
Nathan, just a question. My copper network's been hit by lightning twice in the last 6 months, and so you've got fibre running now right through West Coast from top to bottom. But the issue that I understand is a lot of communities can't actually connect to that. I think goes straight past Arahura without adding additional fibre networks within the small settlements it passes through.
Right. Okay.
And to hook up to it, I believe there's quite an astronomical sum. So, is there a plan to put, I suppose, receiving services or some sort of connection in place to allow these other areas to get hooked into it?
Yeah, so what we're doing at the moment is that we're actually, now that we're coming to the end of the ultra fast broadband build later this year, we're actually looking at sort of what's next and what are the rural areas that still haven't been covered, or what's that next plan for them. So as you say, a lot of the build that we've done, there's actually fibre going right down the South Island, and we've actually just done a big piece of work along the West Coast and down to I think it's Tiano way, just with a bit of diversity. So as you say, there is fibre that goes past quite a few farms or even just general communities. So we're actually coming up with a plan to say, what can we actually do in those situations where fibre is not directly at those houses, but if we were to work with those communities, could we sort of help them, or could there be like a deal done where, say for example, there's 10 houses in a reasonably close area, could they sort of contribute towards getting fibre to their gate, or what can we do to sort of take that next step? Because I think there's a lot more we could do that we'd like to do as well.
Any other questions at this stage, councillors? No, just keep on. Sorry, Jane.
Sorry, I'd just like to say that Canary community, or Lake Canary community, are very keen to see upgrade to their services out there.
Okay.
Wanting the fibre.
Yep, I'm sure. Yeah, I guess the challenge for us is it's basically, to be blunt, it's the cost. So we've spent about $3.5–4 billion taking fibre to where we have now, and the challenge is the further you get out into New Zealand, the rural parts, the further houses are apart, which means the cost just goes through the roof. So not to say it's not impossible, but we're sort of looking at things now and seeing how can we do things a bit smarter? Are there more places we can go to? We're working with the government and Crown Infrastructure to sort of look at options and see if we can do more. But it's certainly challenging. By the time we finish the program, I think 87% of New Zealand will have access to fibre, and that last 13% certainly starts to get challenging. But that's by no means impossible. But we're certainly keen to see what we can do. That's for sure.
One more question, yeah.
Thanks, Nathan. Is fibre the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously a little bit biased, but it's the good thing about fibre is once you have put it in the ground, it can be upgraded to, it's almost, the limits are almost endless. So, for example, we're currently offering what's called 4 gig and 8 gig connections. We trialed the other week 25 gig connections, which is, there's no need for that at the moment. That's just ridiculous speeds, but it just shows you, now you hear talk about 5G and 5G is the future. 5G certainly has its place, but to have a fibre connection into your home, the connection is just for you. You don't have to share it like you do with 5G. It can be upgraded easily and simply. It's a multi-decades infrastructure that'll it'll be fantastic.
Okay, further to my question, thanks, Nathan. I mean, obviously the West Coast has, like the rest of the country, issues around resilience, and Christmas before last got plunging into a black spot when our fibre optic line was broken in one place. So thinking about that at large scale, I mean, if when AF8 happens, the fibre network is completely destroyed in multiple places. I think it took over 24 hours to restore one break. Really concerned about the role that communications actually play in disaster preparedness and, you know, resilience, and hence my earlier question about fibre being the future. Because obviously a lot of money has gone into rolling out the fibre network, as a lot of money originally went into placing the copper network in the ground and along telephone wires and the like. I just think we need to have a conversation around what happens when things go wrong, particularly for telecommunications on the West Coast, when we know it took a team that could mobilise pretty quickly, 24 hours to restore communications. And that wasn't just, you know, people thinking their internet was down, that took all the cell towers down.
That's right.
It basically made us.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So since then, we've actually, in the last couple of months, we've actually completed a project where we have built extra diversity. So previously there was basically one big fibre cable that went down the west coast. So as you say, if there's a big outage or there's a weather event or even an earthquake, if that got cut, it just caused a lot of problems. So we've actually built a second cable that also goes down the west coast. So what happens now, if there's a cut to one cable, we can move the traffic over to the other cable, which just means it just makes life a lot easier. Fewer outages, and when there are outages, we can just move traffic to the other network. So that's going to make a massive difference. So I can send some information through to the councillors just to sort of outline what that project was and the sort of areas it covers, and just for a bit of background, if that's useful.
I think so, and because the other thing is the fibre line, as you get further down south, is running attached to infrastructure where it crosses rivers, right? So it's running underneath bridges. So if those bridges fail, we haven't quite nailed that one, how we can sort of stop that one, but any suggestions would be welcome. Well, I think people think that going wireless or having 5G reception for the internet is just a satellite from the sky beaming to their home, but in fact it's reliant upon those mobile towers, the cell towers, to actually make it operative. So if the fibre line's out, cell towers are out.
That's it. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so it's certainly a challenge, and you know, I guess with climate change, we're seeing more and more of these sorts of events. So we're certainly aware of it and sort of looking at what we can do to make the network more protected and able to withstand these sorts of events.
So you don't have shares in Starlink then?
No, it's funny enough. Like I live in Christchurch, just in West Melton, just out of Christchurch, and a lot of farmers around here where the copper network is it's not that great, to be honest, because you've got farms distance apart and long driveways. So a lot of them have actually moved on to Starlink, which in the feedback from them, they think it's fantastic. So our view is if we can't provide a good service, and there's other better options out there, like so for that example, Starlink, we support them moving to that because they're going to get a far better service. So there's a range of options. So it's not just a copper or fibre or fixed wireless, and satellite is becoming more and more realistic, particularly for those more domestic. So I guess rural areas. Our view is there's no mobile towers, or the copper network doesn't quite do the job.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Just continue. Do you have more for us?
And that's it.
Nathan, have you finished your presentation?
Yes, sorry, that's it. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
All right, Nathan, look, thank you very much. That's been most interesting and encouraging for us to hear what progress has been made in your space. And thanks very much for taking the time and trouble, and look forward to hearing from you perhaps again in the future.
No worries at all. I think my contact details will probably be circulated. So if you have any more questions or any queries from any of your communities, feel free to drop me a line, and we can help out there as well.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I move that the presentation from Nathan Beaumont, Head of Corporate Relations, of course, be received. Someone like to second that, please. Councillor, all in favour? Aye. I think Lindley, you're next. Financial report from Lindley.
Good afternoon, Chair and Councillors. Through the Chair, I present the financial report for May. I'll take it as read, and through the Chair, we'll set any questions.
AJD. We don't normally get many questions, Lily, for you, but let's see how we go today. Councillors, anyone have any questions? So I see we've got a $10 million surplus.
Yes.
Does that mean $10 million cash surplus?
No, because some of it is vested assets and some is also the gain on swaps, which is over $1 million. What I'm proposing for next year's reports is to add another little section that takes off the capital project funding, the gains on swaps, and the vested assets to give you a better idea of what the operation is.
Yeah, because when you look at that, you think, wow, that seems incredible.
Yeah.
It can't be right, and it's not. It's sort of right theoretically.
It is from accounting principles,
Yeah.
but if you're looking at it from a ratepayer's perspective, it certainly looks too good.
Yeah. Okay, councillors, any questions from finance manager? Well, just once again.
Just noting on page 31, the debt position, how it's creeping upwards.
Yes. Yes, it's gone to 29.8, but the budget is actually 33 million, and there will be only over 40 million in the annual plan for 2023, but we have done some revisions, so it will come down again. But it's all part of, based on what the long-term plan was. Yep.
Should be a target.
It's not a target, but it's just how our projects are funded.
Okay, would someone like to move that the finance manager's report period ending 31 May 2022 be received? Councillor Hart, Councillor Davidson, all those in favour? Aye. Now you're going to talk to the rates write-offs. That's pages 34 onwards, councillors. You want to talk to this report?
Basically, the report is the schedule of the rates write-off, incorporating the unoccupied Murray land, and the rest of the write-offs are in relation to our policies.
I had a question about this. The budget, I think, figure the budget was 150,000 for write-offs for the current year. I see the total write-offs for the previous year, 2021 year, was a total of 520,000 or thereabouts. I'm wondering if that's sort of the level of write-offs that we customarily have on an annual basis. Why on earth would we have budgeted for a $150,000 write-off?
I think there were some exceptional ones last year, like the unoccupied land, is that correct?
Through the chair, yeah, it's in the table. It states that there was a contiguous adjustment, so for ombudsman refunds. So that's what happened the previous year.
But not exceptional in that the write-offs for the current year are still very high.
They are, but it's again, some of that is to do with the non-contiguous remissions that we've been reviewing the rating information database.
So going forward is budget levels.
Well, we try to keep to we're trying to keep to the 150, but as we're reviewing the grid, obviously we're finding things, but
it's a lot cleaner than it ever has been.
It's a lot, it is, and it's going down, but we don't want to start sticking big budget figure in there.
You've been dealing with curly issues and so on.
Yeah, but we're hoping that we're getting on top of those now, because we have been reviewing. Petro has been doing a really good job reviewing it, and as you can see, it is going down. So hopefully we will get to that target. I mean, there could always be something strange that happens if we have to.
Although of course that might change further with the amendment to the Rating Act, because it's not only unoccupied Māori land now, is it? It's Māori land that can be proven is not providing, an income is not drawn on that land.
That's correct.
So it's not just unoccupied Māori land.
Yes.
Now it's been an amendment just the past year.
But through the chair, if we know about these things before we budget, then we build them in already.
Yeah.
So what's the implications of that for us?
Well, if we don't build them into the actual rating, the rating information database, then we get more of these unbudgeted rate write-offs. But we're well aware of those changes, so we've been building them in.
Does that affect our budgeting?
It doesn't affect the budgeting, it affects the rates, and there's a distribution then of the remission.
Councillors, any else? All right. So we still move that the finance manager's rates write-off report for the financial year ended 30th of June 2022 be received. Firstly, and that council approves the total proposed rates write-offs and remissions of $345,892, including GST. Someone like to move? Well, I shall move in that direction. Some second that motion. Councillor Hartshorn, all those in favour? Aye. Say aye. Well, the most important item on the agenda is the next one, the members' allowance policy. Did you read?
I've got the remuneration.
Councillors, so the group present the report for the elected members' allowances policy. This is a review after 3 years, so it's a practice to review. It's also timely because of it being election year. Actually, update this policy at this point in time. I'll take your questions.
Can you indicate to us, obviously, how it differs from the policy previously, as it was just sort of tidying up?
It's just a tidying up basically. So what we've done is to make sure that all the allowances figures are in an appendix, and that way if they change on a yearly basis, we don't have to review the policy and bring it back for adoption. We can just make changes to the actual appendix. We've also reinstated the threshold for the mileage. Don't know why it was taken out last time. There was no reason behind it. It just seemed to have been dropped off without any direction to do so. So we've reinstated that as it's best practice for councils to have a threshold in there.
Are expenses in line with other councils?
The expenses are set by our remuneration, so it's maximum expense that we're allowed to give. It's not mandatory to give an allowance. That's why we need policy. So these are the ones that we're asking council to actually adopt.
Okay, thank you. Is any councillor Martin?
Thank you. Thanks for the policy, draft policy, Leslie. Just a couple of questions, 2.6, page 43, other matters or other items of possible private benefit. Obviously these potentially have implications for councillors going about their business as elected members, particularly flu vaccinations. Is this a requirement of the LGA that councillors are prohibited from having the flu vaccination at council's expense? Is it actually deemed to be a private benefit, or is it, have we just, is that just current practice, so we've formalised it in writing?
It's current practice throughout councils, and also it is not in the actual elected members, the local government elected members' allowances or determination. The ones you're allowed on here are the ones that are allowed at set in the remuneration or in the elected members' allowances determination.
That answer your question?
It does. I just think it's to me, it's just really quite petty, really. That and it just, if we're all working in the same building, and the incentive at a policy level is to have flu vaccination, you would think that councillors would be extended the same invite.
Saying it's petty, the elected members' allowances determination.
No. Well, I'm not saying that's petty. That's sense. We have no influence over that. But what we do have influence over is, as I understand it from what you've said, is some of those more discretionary things.
And it's up to council to actually direct.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, right? Like, to me, I mean, I understand medical insurance and all those other things as per the draft, but I'm just thinking for a flu vaccination, and I think I don't need an eye test, but as a group of people working in the same building, I think something like that, we're at a policy level, we're saying all the time, look after your health, look after this. Sure, probably a lot of us qualify for a free flu jab because of age. But, it's the same, it's a policy direction.
Yeah, it's policy direction, but you have to remember that whatever you decide, if you decide to allow for things like flu vaccination or anything that costs money, it will obviously have an impact on rates, because you'll have to cost it for it.
Well, that's the same as if we hire any more staff, it's got an implication on the...
Exactly.
I know, but it's just, I think the direction here is basically, it's kind of two separate groups of people, and I think it's actually about saying in this organisation, some benefits apply to us all when it comes to things like
well, you need to discuss that among yourselves and directors.
Yeah, I just wasn't aware, so thanks for clarifying that, and that's my feelings of things like flu vaccination. If we're paying for the staff's flu vaccinations, then policy wise I think it should be extended, and just to those things like that.
I see electric vehicles up at the same kilometre rate as petrol vehicles. That surprises me. Why?
That's what the allowance is. Yeah. Unless you get over the threshold of 14,000, then it starts.
Yeah, I see that reduces then, but
Yeah.
that's right.
So these are the maximum allowances, but.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Councillor Cody?
Just a question around the ICT allowances and the internet service allowances. So is this something that will be coming into effect with the next council around mobile phone and internet service that we are paying for personally from home when we're using that for council business?
No, if you already have allowances, so we give you an allowance for using certain ICT equipment, not for your laptop obviously, because that's the council one. But we give you allowances already. You get an allowance in your remuneration.
So the allowances is what's already incorporated into our already dismal
You're
pay.
already getting allowances in your remuneration.
Didn't know you were getting it.
Wow, geez,
Bonus.
that's great, isn't it?
We could give you
Hourly
another.
rate's gone down to even less than $1.50, so, wow.
Just through the chair, Leslie is thinking for future Southern Ward councillors. How much has the kilometre rate gone up? It's only gone up about.
How much is
the
what?
kilometre rate for a vehicle has gone up about 8 cents.
That, again, that's based on the elected members' determination. Nothing to do with
No.
They do some analysis and that's what it's determined as.
Is that done?
But it has increased.
Was that done last year or something?
No, this has come through a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you.
For the 1st of July, as I said, on here, it's from the 1st of July.
Any other questions? Councillors? Okay, there being none, someone like to move that the elected members allowance policy be adopted. Is that all?
Yes.
Adopted. Councillor Davidson, someone second, please, Councillor Martin. All those in favour?
Aye.
Please say aye. All right, I see Chris Ray. You look a bit ominous, actually, Chris. You're all of black with a black background there today.
Yeah, a little bit disjointed over here. I had my car broken into while I was in Christchurch, so just trying to pull everything back together.
Oh, you're in Christchurch?
Yeah, he had been over at a Comms Connect conference over here, so it was quite interesting to hear the nice man from Downer.
What happened to your car?
Someone broke into it in the Tate car park and got a few bits and pieces out of it. Yeah.
You up and running now? Everything okay?
Well, I've got about 44% in the laptop, so hopefully that's good.
Oh, okay.
So through the chair there, I'll just take that report that we've sent through as read, just highlighting a few bits and pieces of the statement of intent for Western Holdings. Just those points down on 3.2 that the Westroads income and expenses were slightly higher, taking into account the economy at the moment. The net profit reduced slightly, that's at 872 now. The dollar amount that they had to seek approval from was that 750,000. We've brought that in line with what Western Holdings is, which actually makes sense. And yeah, the new non-financial performance targets that we're just trying to implement with Westroads. And the only other one was Destination Westland's change of putting in a budget for the new loan through the FMA, I think it's, yeah. Happy to take any questions around that.
Councillors, you've read the SOI.
Thanks, Chris, for the report and the finalised statement of intent. Just a question around acquisition procedures on 11. I wonder if we need to have a similar clause for disposal procedures. I think there was probably a recent instance of a significant land sale that I don't think has become privy of council. And I just wonder if a disposal provision or procedure of a certain monetary value would be good from a no surprises perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring that up and yeah, come up with some voice.
I think it's probably administrative, but it just basically it stops you basically, well, stops any future, company or director selling off a strategic asset over a certain value.
Sure. Yeah, we want to keep a no surprises approach with council.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy to work on that.
I don't know what other elected members think, but I think that it would just tidy that up, I think. Make it really clear to you as, what the expectation is in terms of monetary value for disposal of assets.
Makes sense.
Yeah, agree on that. And
any other questions?
The other thing is just in regards to the financials, and I know we could talk about this a long time, but just the forecast dividend for Western Holdings, and the revenue is obviously significant increases each year for the next 3.
Yeah.
But how does the dividends or to me, I don't think the dividend's on par, but certainly there's a big jump in the first year, but with only an $800,000 increase, and I just wonder with the revenue side increasing significantly in 24-25, whether the dividend should also be increasing in line with revenue.
That'll come up with the end of the financial year, what the actual gross profit is throughout those 2 companies.
Yeah.
Then we try and make what we think will be a prudent decision around what that payment will be. And then we also try and take into account the subvention payments that are passed across. But looking at that revenue increasing, we're just trying to increase the profit at the same time. Might not be as easy.
I know it's always the balancing act, but I think there's a lot of pressure on council finances at the moment, and certainly there's other benefits other than economical benefits from having these companies, and they provide great return for council. But I just wonder, one measure obviously is dividend return, and whether that should actually be at least, I would suggest an increased expectation, but I know you'll be working towards that naturally anyway.
Absolutely.
It's probably just about formalising that without delaying what we're doing today, setting the direction that, because the dividend for 2024-25 is sort of 2020 level.
Yeah.
So effectively for the last 5 years, we've obviously had COVID, we've had significant economic disruption, but to come out of it and then to be back where we were a couple of years ago in terms of dividend expectation, I think is something we could address.
Yep. Well, as I say, if the money comes in, we'll be certainly passing it across as much as we can.
Yeah.
And as you know, we do monitor the companies as best we can to try and get those financial goals up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for answering those questions.
Chris, I see that the estimated commercial value of the whole company is 14.5 million. Now, is that including, I guess, the pension housing?
Yep.
So I wonder if we could ask for a report to come back to the council in future on the effect of the loss of the pension housing off our books, plus the future loss of 3 Waters, should it goes through, and the effect that will have on our global borrowing, because it will have a definite effect, and on the ceiling. I'd like to see that. And, analysis of that.
Yes, I think most one of the concerns right across the sector is exactly that.
Yeah.
That it's going to have a detrimental effect on balance sheet.
Yeah. Coming through the chair. So National Transition Unit obviously is well underway. Impacts both commercially and financially for councils is part of that work. plus also to do with the impacts on our other stakeholders in terms of making sure that we are covered legally, contractually as well. So there will be quite a bit of work between now and probably 18 months to go in terms of the new formation of the entity. Definitely we'll be bringing reports back as soon as we get any detailed information. But the transition unit process is quite in depth, and I think by the end of I'd say around June next year, we'll have a very clear understanding in terms of our position.
As long as it doesn't get premature, as long as it doesn't get overtaken by the next reform on the block, such as the local government reform, the haze.
No, we're always forecasting, particularly the next annual plan, forecasting what the following year will look like with lots of these entities. So it has to be done as part of the work anyway.
So can we have more enough information?
Not at the moment. I'm going to say bear in mind, we've still got capital programs in play. We need to understand how they progress over the next 6 months. Particularly around through this.
Okay, Chris, I think that's it for you. Thank you very much, and sorry to hear about your little problems like that are very annoying. So we sympathise with you, and thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
So,
Mr. Acting Mayor, just a question on whether we can. I appreciate I put forward that amendment, which
on
the acquisitions and whether for putting a 12 and disposal procedures. Is that something we can decide today? Like, have we got time to just in the resolution to include that, or?
I wonder whether we need to have a discussion with Western Holdings about whether we need to discuss that with them further before we impose that.
I think in more detail in terms of the expectations.
The rationale for a limit on the acquisitions make perfect sense. Disposals.
For argument's sake, the pension housing stock is sold. You know, it's a divestment of assets. It's not to say that I don't think they're planning on doing that.
If I think it through, they should be coming to us in terms of anything greater than 500,000 anyway.
That's they can't for acquisition. So where is that? Because I couldn't find that clearly. I thought that's our unwritten procedure.
Constitution.
Yeah, so it's probably just aligning the Constitution with the SOI just so it's crystal clear. Because I know that's exactly what they do. Or, you know, that's our understanding, but probably just formalises our understanding that 500 each way.
I think they realised it was suicide.
How do you want to deal with that? What's your recommendation?
Between now and the next formation of the SOI, I think we can have further workshops with Western Holdings. I've got a meeting with Joanne and the board next week. I can make sure that council's aware of
discussion about it before we
yeah, that's what I mean. That's
raised on behalf of Western Holdings to be received and seconded there. That the final statement for Western Holdings over 3 years beginning 1 July 2022 be received. Someone second that, please.
I think Paul had a question.
Councillor Hartshaw, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Chris, thank you. Well done.
Moving on.
So, sorry.
Did you have a question?
Oh, I thought you were ignoring Paul.
Oh, no, I wasn't.
I was ignoring you.
Well, I was writing, but he's Paul, what?
Because it's now gone. I was just going to ask about the renewal of the consent for extending the runway to the airport, and how much that's expected to cost. How do we fund
It's a different topic rather than Easter life. It's getting over around what's intended.
Maybe could you take it to the meeting next week?
I do have meetings John next week, so I can raise that.
And then maybe there's two actions in that one, and just clarifying exactly that before we adopt the annual plan, the dividend expectations forecast. I know it's in the SOI because one year we did agree to no dividend. It was on the expectation that in future years that would be offset.
Yeah. Okay, item 9 on the agenda, reference to the LGNZ conference. And so at that conference, I'm going, Nathan's going, Simon is going, Bruce was going again, but of course is unable to. So we need a resolution that 3 members are going to the LGNZ conference in Palmerston North. Someone I can move that, maybe other than someone other than David, someone second that, please. Councillor Hart, all those in favour?
Aye.
Just what to, sorry.
I had a question. How much is that going to cost?
It's closer to zero. We're driving up. Is
that to reduce costs or to reduce carbon? No, but seriously, how much is it costing? Because we've just had the big debate about the value of local government, which is questionable. And here we are hoiking off to.
Well, if I can just respond to that, I was going to mention this the second that last week Simon and I attended the provincial and rural sector of local government conference in Wellington, Thursday and Friday, and I thought it was, never having been to one, I thought it was a really valuable conference, and the reason it's valuable, I found it valuable, and made this comment too, at an early meeting today, just sort of reading and picking up the feeling of other mayors and chiefs and councils. There's a sort of a widespread sense of almost, I suppose, a sense of being overwhelmed by the change that's come upon us, the reforms that come upon us, and all the rest of it. So I came away from that reinforced in my view that being involved in LGNZ was a good thing, particularly at this time, so that we can be properly appraised of and informed of and aware of the significance of what's coming at us. And there's a massive amount coming at us. The reform, the RMA reforms and what that's going to be are going to be incredible. And LGNZ is doing lots of work in that space. And so from my point of view, my perspective, I found that very valuable. And I think this is crucial at this time of change that as a council we are in that time. Anyone else have any comments about that?
One would hope, of course, that the LGNZ is going to valuable lesson from the Three Waters.
They completely have.
And that they won't continue to be living for the government reform package. But we already contribute $6,000 to go to that's on top of the $36,000. And there is a former mayor within Kiwi of that always refused to go to LGNZ conferences because of nothing more than talk fest.
Well, absolutely, it's a talk. in my experience for last week, what we talked about is highly relevant to us, and it's crucial that we know what's going on in the city.
I don't think we're going to be left out. I'm not going to the conference, but hands down.
Anything to add, Simon?
On top of this, if we would like to isolate ourselves from everything that goes with regards to what the government we can, at the end of the day, we become a reliant and knowing what's going on around the place. This adds a whole lot of capability around connectivity, particularly when we have common ground, for example, community like democracy or training sessions around that event, because it's the first time that they have gathered all together in one place. So there's things that network can actually provide a lot of benefit to the Westland. You know, we do, there's a lot of politics that goes into those things as well, and leverage positions that can be taken at the same time.
It shouldn't cost these but budget about it.
We've been with every single one and respond up in here anyway.
Okay, we have a resolution. You
already moved it.
All those in favour? So we go to June for 2 minutes.
Right, just one thing through the chair, positive thing. I've had quite a bit of feedback about the Canary crossing out there and the upgrade work that they've done out there when you come off the Canary Bridge and you approach onto that road there, about how much better it is. So I went out there myself and drove it along there, and it's a huge improvement. So they've done a fantastic job out there. So well done for all concerned.
Good. Thank you. Okay. So I shall move that the council move public excluded section. So I'd like to second that motion, please. Councillor Martin, all those in favour, please say aye.
Just to consider the public and the minutes, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So Stephen, to leave us briefly.